All right, good morning. I'm going to go through the listing paperwork for North Carolina today to do a listing and to get it into Flex MLS and the paperwork for getting it into Rain if you want it in the Rain MLS as well. So here we go. Let's get it started. So we're in Brokerment. We're going to use the listing package. I already set up my listing. I just did a little quick one for Knott's Island and made it up as I went. We've got our buyer, John Smith here, and I'm going to hit back. Move this real quick. I'm going to hit back real quick so you guys can see the forms that I added. I've got all of our documents for North Carolina. I've got our listing agreement. Is that our newest listing agreement? Hmm. Let me see. There it is. All right, so we've got our listing agreement in here, all of our documents that are required to go over, and I added the data input sheet for Rain as well. I have our lead paint addendum for North Carolina in case we need to disclose that for North Carolina. I also have a video that we are going to watch here at the last 20 minutes of how to add your listing to Flex MLS from Flex MLS of exactly what to do. So obviously we have our standard forms for our brokerage. We have our cybersecurity, our escrow notice with our lovely attorney, Sandra. And we have our exclusive right to sell agreement, which has our guide form here. All of the North Carolina forms have their own guide forms, which can be found in our company library. So if you get confused, please pull up the guide form because it has specific instructions as to how to do it. So you are going to have your seller's name and our listing firm name at the top. So we are going to click on our effective date, and we are going to put in our date that we are going to list it. And we are going to pick a date that we are going to end it. And I'm just picking random dates here. We're going to verify that all of our information is correct. We're going to put in our county. You have got to initial these. Your sellers have to initial these. You're going to put in as much information as possible. You need to find this in the tax records. You need to add as much information as humanly possible to this. North Carolina wants to see as much information as you can possibly find. They do not want you to skip any of this. If it is possible to find it, you need to find it. The more information you put in here, the better. They do not want you skipping any of it. At a minimum, you need to have a number in here. You also need to have your other description, which is going to be your legal description. You do need to have a deed book and you need to have a page number. those are not things you can skip because you're going to need to list them in the MLS as well. And you can find those by looking them up in the county tax records. And I'm just making them up for our purposes today, but you are going to have an other description, which is going to be your legal description, which is, typically lot 16, whatever it's going to be. Okay. This is where you're going to list all things that are leased items or not owned. This is going to be your propane tanks. So this is going to be, all of your leased items, which are not going to be owned items, anything that is propane tanks, like a satellite dish that is owned by the, servicer, anything like that, all have to be listed here that do not convey or that the lease has to be taken over, solar panels, whatever it may be. And items that do not convey specifically need to be listed here in E. Any item that does not convey, their grandmother's crystal chandelier needs to be listed in this box. If it does not convey, it needs to be listed here. North Carolina does not play with this. You need to list them. If it's a dryer, if it's a washer, if it's whatever it is, it needs to be listed here. Okay. Personal property that conveys at no value. That includes. So if the washer and dryer is staying, it needs to be listed. The dishwasher. Where'd my picture go? I skipped a page. Washer, dryer, refrigerator, all appliances that convey with the property are considered personal property in North Carolina. So the stove, the washer, the dryer, the refrigerator, all of those things that convey at no cost need to be listed here. So electric range, microwave, dishwasher, refrigerator, washer, dryer, all of those will be listed here. Your seller is either going to agree or not agree to convey to a home warranty, not to exceed a certain amount. So if your seller is agreeing to do a home warranty, then what are they offering and how much is it going to cost? Or are you offering the home warranty? Because as you know, if Achosa is doing the free home warranty that transfers, get with Tina and find out how much that costs and send it and put in the appropriate information. Okay. How much are we listing this house for? And please click all appropriate financing. This is and then this one's a little bit different from ours, so we're gonna do a total of 5%. Or, so the seller agrees to pay, and this is the firm, so this is our, they're gonna pay a total fee of, kind of like ours used to be, 5%. And then this is how the same as Rains at the bottom, where it's our protection period for 90 days. So if it expires, we're going to be protected for 90 days. Seller will either seller either directly or indirectly sells, options, exchanges, conveys, or transfers, or agrees to sell, option, exchange, convey, or transfer the property upon any terms whatsoever to any person with whom seller, firm, or any cooperating real estate firm communicated regarding the property during the term of this agreement, or any renew herein, provided the names of such person are delivered or postmarked to the seller within 15 days after expiration. However, seller shall not be obligated to pay the fee if a valid listing agreement is entered into between seller and other real estate broker and the property is subsequently sold. Okay, so there you have it. And this is where we get our cooperation. So cooperation with or compensation to other firms. The firm has advised seller of firms, companies' policies regarding cooperation and the amount of any compensation that will be offered to other brokers, including but not limited to seller sub-agents, buyer agents, or other or both brokers who do or do not participate in a listing service, and brokers who are or are not realtors. Seller authorizes firm to check all applicable authorizations. So we're not authorizing sub-agents. We are authorizing cooperative buyer's agents. And we are off because we selected 5%. Well, I selected 5%. So we are offering 2.5% of the gross sales price. Because we are not offering them to be sub-agents of the sellers in North Carolina. I don't particularly care for that. So I'm offering a buyer's agent 2.5%. Hang on. Where did my pages go? Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, the marketing effective date is gonna be the same as the list date. Because if we're listing it in rain as well, we can't do coming soon, because if we list it in rain, rain doesn't allow us to do coming soon, which means that we can't do coming soon for the North Carolina one because we're part of rain, which means that we're not allowed to do coming soon. If that made sense. Hello, Caitlin. Because the
Hello.
stricter MLS takes precedence. Caitlin, you have questions yet? And am I making sense?
Well, I just got on because I got distracted, but makes sense.
Sorry, it's a lot of information and like it crosses, some of it crosses over and some of it doesn't.
The whole coming soon part made sense.
Yes. So, okay. And then we are going to have them initial public marketing. We are not going to check the box for this because we are not going to have them do coming soon. We are not doing that. We are going to check the box for signs because we are doing signs. We are going to be allowed to conduct an open house. We are going to be allowed to do internet advertising. Or we're going to be doing advertising other than the internet. We are going to also be doing internet advertising. And I will show you guys the addendum for that as well. So as you see down here, we have Form 105 may be used to limit or prohibit internet advertising. Okay. We are not going to have them initial here. And that is, hang on. I want to make sure I read this one correctly. Okay, yeah, because you don't want them to be, you don't want them to withhold the consent to, you want to be able to publicly advertise this. Okay? We want to put a key box on it. We need people to be able to get in. Please. Help me sell this. Okay? Okay, the seller acknowledges and understands that while marketing services selected above will facilitate the showing and sale of the property, there are risks associated with allowing access and disseminating information about the property that are not within reasonable control of the firm, including but not limited to unauthorized use of lock and key box, control of visitors during and after showing or an open house, including the taking and use of photographs and videos of the property, inappropriate use of information about the property placed on the internet or furnished to any listing service in which the firm participates, and information about the property placed on the internet by or through any listing service which the firm participates, which is inaccurate or dated, or information about the property which may remain on the internet following the expiration date, including but not limited to photographs. So North Carolina kind of covers everything. Okay, so for us, we do not hold earnest money. We remember we always check no, because where does earnest money go? It goes to the attorney's trust account, not ours. Correct? A resounding yes.
Yep.
I mean, obviously we only have Caitlin, but that's okay. for all those in the back, because it's just me and Caitlin today, that's okay, because this is going on the YouTube for all to go back to. Our firm does not hold earnest money. This box will always be checked, does not. We do not hold earnest money. Ever. Do not have an earnest money deposit check made out to Coastal Town Realty. Please do not. Okay, and this is part of seller representation. Has your seller owned this property for at least 1 year or less than 1 year, or do they not own it yet? If the seller does not own it yet, the seller agrees to promptly provide the firm with information pertaining to the seller's acquisition of the property with their contract or option of the property. So like this is for like things that are like developments, or if they own the contract, like it's a option contract. I get the attorneys involved if this is what we're doing. Is this a bankruptcy property? There's all these different options. So I'm just going to click this top one because this is most of the time what you're going to see. This property has been owned for at least 1 year. 90% of us are going to see this at least owned for 1 year. Okay. And then you have to pick one of these. It is not under bankruptcy. They are not contemplating bankruptcy. Okay. Access. The property has legal. In North Carolina, you need to check as many of these boxes as you possibly can. North Carolina does not want you to be missing any of these blanks. Really and truly, they do not want you skipping boxes. If you have the information, you need to fill it out, if at all possible. If it does not apply, it does not apply. Okay, kind of like this mobile home one, complete only if. Okay, but access. Property has legal access of public right of way. If access is by private road, so if it does not apply, it does not apply. Homeowners association, complete only if a homeowners association. Is there a homeowners association? So if there is a name of a homeowners association, then we put one in. If there's we have to have the homeowners association president's contact information. As much information as you can. If you do not have their address, that's okay. Put in their name, their phone number, and their email address will suffice if you do not have an actual physical address for that person. So it could be and that will suffice. I don't know whose phone number that is, but somebody about to get some phone calls. And then describe any potential or pending dispute. This is like Liz pendences, any kind of litigation that is going to affect the seller per the association. The owners, the association, anything that is going to affect this property. Are they getting a divorce? Do they have Liz pendants? Do they have tax liens coming up? Do they have any of those things? List them all right here. Is your seller about to get sued? Okay. Is your seller a foreign investment? Does your seller, did your seller purchase this as a foreign investment property? And have an affidavit for that per the Internal Revenue Tax Code? And have a foreign status? Most likely not, but if they do, they need to provide that information to you because we're gonna need a copy of it for the attorneys. And they need to provide it to you now because you don't really want to fill this form out incorrectly. Because North Carolina will not like it. Okay, you do need to provide this. It is down further in this list of forms that I have. Your seller is going to initial the copy of it that they received. Okay. And you are going to have them initial whichever one is appropriate. So if they're doing a resale, they're gonna get the offer to purchase. If they're selling new construction, it's going to be the new construction. And they need to receive one of these as well, which is also down further in our. God help us. And they need to initial both of them. Is the property located in a flood zone? If you have access to Flex MLS, you have access to Cobra, which will tell you if it is in a flood zone or not. We're going to say that it is not in a flood zone. And do they maintain flood insurance? Yes or no? We're going to say no. This is where you're going to disclose EFS or synthetic stucco, whichever you decide to call it. Here. No, yes, maybe so. Termite bond. Is there a termite bond on the property? No. Is it transferable or not? Are there current liens on the property? Is there a lender? Who is the current lender? What is the approximate balance? Yes, most people have a current loan on their property. Who is it held by? We're just gonna make it up as we go along. You need to fill out as much information as possible. And you need to fill out as much as humanly possible. Is there a second deed of trust? Who is holding that? How much is that balance? Is there a third? And then any specific amount of any additional liens that could affect the sale of this property need to be disclosed in this box here. Do not skip this information. Some people do. Leases. Is the property subject to any leases? Is it currently being rented out? And who is the manager? Has the property been subject to an FHA appraisal within 4 months prior to the effective date? No. If it has, they have to provide a copy of the appraisal. Which is just silliness, but okay. Are there any special assessments? Is there a fuel tank? If there's a fuel tank, where is it? Is it currently in use? Who owns it? Is it leased? Where is it? Is it above ground? Is it below ground? What kind of fuel is it? Is it on an auto refill? How frequently is it refilled? And who is the vendor's name? And there can be multiple fuel tanks. They're fairly common in North Carolina. So I'm gonna say there's no fuel tank. If there was a fuel tank, I would check yes, and I would fill out the following information. And you need to fill it out in its entirety to the best of your knowledge. Get your seller to answer all of those questions for you. Please do not skip them. Okay. On offsite or septic, separate septic, these are for like shared septics and things like that. Boat slips, garage, parking spaces, storage units. So I think the only one I can think of off the top of my head for a shared septic is out on, it's actually in Virginia, is on Shillelagh Road. They built those 6 houses in a row and they have that big shared septic. There's like 6 houses and they have like a huge shared septic. This is where you would disclose something like that. Or a shared parking garage or shared storage units, like in a condo association, or where you have a marina where there's multiple boat slips that are not attached to your home. So you would hit where include, and so we're gonna say our house has boat slip. I don't like it being up there in the corner. Boat slip number 34. And then storage unit 13. Oh, how did that happen? Oh, ours comes with boat slip number 34 and storage unit 13. Because that's what I like. That's what I want. And governmental compliance. Oh, let me see. Oh. Hmm. Warrants that the property is not in violation of any law, ordinance, permit, or governmental regulation. Okay, so that's for like stormwater, impervious government protection. Okay, so basically you didn't violate wetlands or fill in something you weren't supposed to fill in, and you're not in, you didn't build an unpermitted building in the back of your property that somebody, it's gonna come back and bite the buyer in the butt later on. Except for the following. So you didn't build a workshop in the wetlands and now it's gonna come back and bite the buyer in the butt. Okay, seller's duties. The seller is going to fill out I. So these are 3 disclosures that the seller is going to fill out unless they are exempt from. Okay, and the only time that they are going to be exempt from is if they are new construction or built prior to 1978. So, and well, that's not necessarily true. So technically, they'll be exempt from the property, residential property and owners association disclosure. Like if you are selling a house that somebody has lived in for quite a while, and I can't remember the exact time frame, that let's say the owner is selling the house to a tenant that has lived there for quite a few years, they won't necessarily have to disclose that because the tenant has been living there for several years. So they're exempt from that, technically. Let's see. Oh, come on. Right. So then we've got seller. Seller duties. Okay. So they're gonna, it's gonna be very much similar. So we got our seller duties and those are gonna be basically making the property available for showings. Providing the listing from providing firm as soon as reasonably possible after the execution of this agreement, copies of all of the following documents where relevant, if in possession, restrictive covenants affecting property, bylaws, articles, da 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 da. Basically, the seller is willing to turn over any and all documents pertaining to the property when requested of them. And then the seller is going to basically allow the attorney representing them to get and release and disclose all material facts about the title and the title insurance to all parties that require said information, and acknowledges that the firm is under no obligation um to verify, wait, hang on. Acknowledges and understands that the firm is under no obligation to require any of the information referenced in subparagraph C, which is right here. The accuracy of any such in subparagraph B, or to verify the accuracy of any such information that may be affected or be provided by firm. D, immediately referring to firm, all inquiries and offers it may receive during the regarding the property, showing the property by appointment made by or through the firm, and conducting all negotiations through the firm. So basically, they are only going to be, you know, dealing with us and us exclusively, and our requests, and they are their attorney's requests of them in a prompt manner. And to provide any and all documentation asked and required of them to get this property to the closing table. That is what they are agreeing to in this document. Section, okay. And then we are down in home inspection. Seller has advised to purchase home inspection. We do not agree to obtain a home inspection. We're not getting a pre-listing inspection. We're not getting a listing inspection prior to. And additional terms of this agreement, we are putting in here that the seller will pay the coastal town admin fee. And this is where we get into dual agency. We do not do dual agency. Okay. So we are going to get rid of this one because we do not authorize, they do not authorize us to act as a dual agent. They will authorize us to act as designated dual agents but they will not authorize us to act as a dual agent for both the buyer and the seller at the same time. We don't need this one signed. We just need these ones. Because we can act as designated dual agents, but not as a dual agent. Does that make sense? So we can act as a dual agent, but not as, so we're, we are not representing both the buyer and the seller. We are acting as a designated, the firm is acting as as designated dual agents. So I can represent the seller while we'll say Carol Lee Fleming can represent the buyer as a designated dual agent in the same firm, but I am not representing personally the buyer and the seller at the exact same time. Which means that our firm is not giving exclusive representation. Which is why we need to not do this portion down here. And we have made it to the end of our piece. It's a long class. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't think it was going to be this long. I apologize. I didn't think we were going to have this much to cover. I'm so sorry. I thought it was going to be quicker. God help me. All right. And this one is going to be, I'm sorry. This is our residential property and owners association disclosure statement. You cannot fill this out for your sellers. They have to fill this out. They can check no representation or yes or no. Please try to have them fill it out as accurately as possible, but they need to click on these themselves. You cannot fill this out for them. They have got to fill this out. So you need to go there and have them click on it themselves. Okay? And they need to try and fill it out as accurately as humanly possible. It is very self-explanatory. Going. Lead paint disclosure, again, very, very self-explanatory. They either have knowledge of it or they don't. It is, once again, very self-explanatory. They have no reports. They have no knowledge. This is our professional services. If you've done a buyer side, you have seen this. You've seen this multiple times. Pick who they're going to use. Oh, wait, they're going to use Jones, Walker, and Lake. Fill it out. They need stuff already repaired. Go ahead and fill it out. You know what I mean? Like they're waiving stuff. Fill it out. Great. Fill out what you can. They've already signed it. You're going to have this initial. This is your sample form. You need to go through this with them because they probably don't remember. Or when they did fill out the contract last time, it has probably changed since then because this is from 2023. This is your Q&A. This is your internet advertising addendum. Let me do a checkbox. Make checkbox. This is your checkbox. This is your form. This is the form we just used right there. That is the one. It is dated for the date of that contract. Right here. The date that our contract is. Whatever date you signed that contract. Okay. Where did you go, Fran? Oh, for the love of all that is holy. Anyways, all right. So you're gonna choose A or B. I want A. Oh, well, that's a date. Oops, I'm sorry. I want a checkbox. I'm gonna choose A because I want to display stuff on the internet. I want A, or I want them to know where the property is. I do not want automatic evaluation. I do not want third-party commentary. And they're gonna sign it. You're working with real estate agents for sellers. Seller agency, designated agency, working with unrepresented buyers. Hang on. Oh. Oops. Boop, there we go. And sign away. And you're going to fill out your RAIN form. Just the data input sheet. That is it. That is it and that alone. Okay? If you want it to populate in RAIN, you will fill out your data input sheet. Just the data input sheet. Okay? You will put it in there with your RAIN ID, all your regular RAIN information. Okay? And you will hit other approved lockbox. Okay? Because it's not a RAIN lockbox, it's other approved. You will put in all of your stuff. RAIN will populate an area ID for you. You'll put in the legal description. RAIN will pull up most of the information. You will be able to pull this off, I promise you. So the only thing for RAIN that you will put in there, because you will not be putting your documents in there, because the documents and disclosures are completely separate from RAIN. So the only thing you will be putting in, doing for the RAIN portion, is this data input sheet, okay? You will be doing NA and none for your crash and noise, because it does not apply, okay? And you will fill it out just like you're trying to put it in RAIN. You're gonna hit standard agency ER, just like you were putting it in RAIN, and just fill everything else out like you're doing a normal data input sheet. Okay? Everything else is gonna be everything else is just gonna be just the same. Okay? And I know that this class is gonna run long, so I'm gonna cut it off here with this. And then you're gonna have your seller initial this as well. And that is it for our documents. And I have a video for you guys real quick. It's only a few minutes long of how to get your listing into Flex. So hopefully, Caitlin, tell me if you can hear this.
Add listing.
Yep.
Clicking on a function will end up in the add listing module. And it's a fairly straightforward process and similar to other functions or modules throughout the system, such as quick search or even a CMA. With this process, we are going to start at the top of our screen and work our way down. And then we're going to go from left to right. So kind of think about reading a book. So the first thing we will do is we're going to select the property type. That, of course, will determine what fields are available for our listing. And you want to ensure that you do select the correct property type. Residential, for this MLS, we have residential and residential lease. So you want to ensure that you select residential lease if you are adding a property that would be for lease, and not to confuse them. So just pay attention when you're adding your property type when you're first starting the process. All right, the next area we're going to go down to is the listing member, and that will be set up by default based on you being the user in the system. So it's picking up me, it's picking up that I am the trainer or the listing member as a trainer for this particular user account, and it will just flag my information. If you are working with a co-listing agent, that can be a next step, and you would enter their information below. So I will add a co-listing agent, and I'm just going to pick on another training or testing account that we use, and add them accordingly. The next step we can take is the tax ID, and not every MLS will have this feature, but for those who do, it is a really nice feature. I'm going to copy and paste. I've got the parcel ID number or tax ID number for a property. And the nice thing about what I'm about to do is I am using a listing that has previously been in the MLS. And for many of you adding listings, that is an option, and you can autofill a lot of your information. For those that maybe it's a brand new listing or it had been built and it hadn't had the opportunity to be in the MLS yet, you'll just enter all the information that you have for the listing that's required, certainly manually. But if your property has been in the MLS before and you do have this auto pop feature, this is a really nice way to kind of bypass some of the entry process. So I'm going to click load my tax record, and this is going to automatically shift me from the general tab over to the address tab. And because
She stopped talking.
fields, it is
Better.
the case. So you'll want to just double check and make sure everything came through correctly. There's no typos or anything like that, not likely to be the case, but certainly could be possible. And then you'll want to move on to the next tab. You have a couple options. You can select the buttons at the bottom, so next or back, depending on what you're most comfortable with, or you can just simply shift over to the next tab. Before I do so, I do want to highlight that this timestamp is updating as I move along. So every couple of minutes, the system is going to save your work. If you're taken away for any reason from the process of getting your listing into the system, or maybe you get halfway through and there's some additional information that you still need before you can finalize everything, the system's going to auto save your work and you will not lose what you have started entering. So just keep that in mind, that you will not lose any information, which is helpful to know. All right, so now we're going to shift over to the main fields tab, which is where a lot of the work is going to be accomplished. But before doing so, I'm going to need to geocode or locate the property on for this listing. So this map is going to pop up. It's going to have the red pin, which is identifying the location. Sometimes it can be helpful to adjust the type of map that you're viewing to ensure that indeed this is over the property, and sometimes the pin might be out in a green space, or in this case on a golf course. Maybe it's in the road and you want to just make sure that it's correctly covering that property. So just take a quick look, and once you have that location solidly identified, just click use location, and we are able to move on to the next tab. So now we will find ourselves on the main fields tab. And this is going to allow us to enter a lot of information. There is some information, as I mentioned, that will come over if your listing has previously been in the MLS and you're able to auto-populate. But there's plenty, as you can also see, that does not come over. So you are going to have to manually make those field updates. As you can see, there's my timestamp. It just updated again after a few minutes. So we can start to work our way from the top and work our way down. If you do have any questions on fields, oftentimes there's help text next to the field that can kind of help guide you through the process of adding this field. If you are working through things and you just want to get done, you are, kind of in a time sensitive situation, and you want to ensure that all those required fields are being added, you have the ability to filter what fields that you see. So right now we're looking at all fields under main fields. I can switch this to view only required fields, or if maybe I've gotten quite a bit done already with the fields that need to be entered, I can look at only the empty required fields to really streamline the process of getting everything complete. So you've got a few different ways that you can view what is required. I do want to note, just because a field is not required does not diminish the importance of the field. As you all know, the more information that's included in a listing can oftentimes be very beneficial to those agents that would like to show your listing once it is on in the MLS. So just kind of keep that in mind. So for status, the default here is set to active. You can select subtype in this MLS. That's the next order. So you'd want to select the appropriate subtype. Then they have some fields that are probably a little more exclusive to the MLS, which will be typical, as every MLS is quite a bit different from the other. But you're just going to scroll down and enter all the fields that are applicable. And then again, if you need to filter out those fields to include only those required fields, that is an option. Once you are done with this process, you can move along to the next tab. I also want to highlight that there are some information bubbles as well as help text on many of these fields. So if you have a question on a particular field, and this one happens to be above grade finished area, there's an information bubble that will kind of help guide you how to use the field properly, and then for the MLS specifically, what this field is the intention of the field. So for this particular MLS, it would be footage of on or above grade, and what that field
What the heck?
would exclude. So different setups at times, but a lot of helpful information can be found when you are entering listing information. All right, next step, we'll move along to the details tab. And here I'm looking at only required fields. So there's not a lot that is required on the detail tab for this MLS. That doesn't mean that there aren't quite a few fields and that they're not important fields. So that's, again, another kind of point that I'd like to make, that these can all be very beneficial. So when you're on the detail tab, this is going to obviously look a little bit different than it does on the main fields tab. Set up into different groups, and then you can make a selection within that group. There are some that are checkboxes. some list fields. You can choose from a particular list based on that field, and some offer an open text field that you would type in a name in this instance for an HOA contact. So you'll just kind of scroll down, look at the fields that are available in the detailed groups. You know, a pet group, this is not considered required, but could be very important to the property that you are looking to list. Say in the situation that it's a rental or a lease, it would be good to know if pets in that case were allowed to be residents as well. So just take a look at all of the fields again and indicate what is required. In this case, the foundation group is required, and you need to select between 1 and 6 items in those fields that are considered required. All right, so as we move towards the bottom, there's quite a few fields or groups, I should say, and fields within those groups that are not required for this MLS, but they're still important to creating a listing in the MLS that is going to offer really good information. All right, next we're going to move along to the Rooms tab. And this process is fairly straightforward. You'll need to follow the prompts, and the first prompt is going to be to add a room. Once you select that option, you're going to have this menu populate, and you will select the room name from a list. So we will want to select, maybe we're going to add the dining room, and indicate which level the dining room would be on. Maybe that's on the main level, likely. The length and the width, these are not considered required. There is a small red asterisk with those required fields, but certainly the more information, the better. If you're going to be, you know, kind of highlighting any specific rooms, dining rooms, kitchens, great rooms, primary beds, anything like that, it's nice to be able to add some dimensions on how large those rooms are to highlight some of the benefits of that property. Room features, you can indicate anything here. Maybe we have some beamed ceilings, built-in bookcases for our dining room that we would like to include. And any additional remarks, you can always update using the remarks field, anything additional that you'd like to highlight about a particular room. Once you are done, you can move on to add a second room or as many rooms as you feel would be beneficial to the listing. And if you find that you have a room that may not be necessary or duplicated or something along those lines, you can always just remove that room and start over. So a lot of options with the Rooms tab. For this MLS, the room name and level are required, and that would be the extent of it. So I'll just finish this one, and then we will move along. Okay, now we're on the Photo tab. And for this MLS, they do require a photo to be added. Primary listing photo, typically it's the exterior of the property. So you don't always have to do this, and not every MLS has this requirement in this position. I understand, but for this, in this case, this MLS does. So you would opt to choose your file. Let's see. Got to find all my photos here. So in this case, we want to use like an exterior photo. So I'm going to select that photo. We'll give it a description. I'm just going to call it Rose Creek Exterior, which is where this particular listing is located. And then if you wanted to add additional caption, you know, great curb appeal or something that's probably way more catchy than even that, you can do so using the caption option. All right, so now I'm going to shift down to the broker distribution tab. And again, we started on general, started top to bottom, and just kind of working our way through these various tabs, completing the necessary information that's required. Okay, now on the broker distribution tab, this is where you'll work with your clients, your sellers, to determine how they want their listing to be viewed on external sites, on with third parties, etc. So if they have any preference to opt out, you would indicate that here on this broker distribution tab. For this MLS, these distribution options are set to default. If they do not want maybe this listing shown anywhere, you can certainly modify those fields or those boxes to indicate where it should show up and where it shouldn't. All right, so now we've had the last autosave at 2:22 p.m. And when I try to save this listing, so I'm going to try and add this listing right now, I'm going to get an error that there have been significant number of errors that have been found due to incomplete fields, which I'm aware of. But just know that if you do try to submit your listing before it's fully complete and all those required fields have been entered, you will get an error and you will not be able to move forward. So with that, and this is going to even bring me back to the main list fields tab, where it's telling me you need to finish all of your work in order to allow this listing to go live. So with that said, I am going to now come up to the Save Incomplete Listing option, although this has been saving all along. By clicking on this, I am going to be transferred from the Add Listing module into the Incomplete. And so I've got, of course, both these functions in my favorites bar, but this was just an easy transition from the Add Listing. Now I'm in the My Incomplete listing. So maybe there's quite a bit of information that I was waiting on in order to complete those various main list fields that are still required, and I can't complete it quite yet because I'm waiting on that information. But what I can do in the meantime is I can maybe add photos and or any associated documents, or possibly even links to videos and virtual tours. So the next step would be to go into photos. And we have our exterior photo, so that was already done, and that was a requirement in the Add Listing portion. So to follow the next couple of steps, I'm going to click Add Photos. And now I can select all of the photos that I would like to include. So I'm going to click or select my bathroom, dining room. It's like I've got a couple different options here, kitchen and living room. Okay, so I'm going to open those. And as long as you have the photos that you wish to include for your listing on your computer, you can select many at a time to upload. I'm just going to demonstrate on these 6 photos, but certainly you will likely have many more than just 6, and you can select those all at one time. All right, so now we're in the process of setting up these photos, and my exterior photo, because I added it during the Add Listing process, is front and center. But that's not going to always be the case for everyone. And there may be a time that your bathroom photo, will say, has been identified as a primary photo, or not necessarily bathroom, any photo that maybe you don't want to be considered the primary or profile photo. The way to change that is you'll notice that the primary or profile photo will have kind of this blue square around it and this flag at the top that has a blue flag. What you'll want to do is select the photo that you would like to make your primary and click that flag. So this was correct from the beginning, but just in case any of yours show up that are not quite the way you would like them, this is how you would change it. You also have the option to click and drag or change by number, depending on how many photos you're working with and what your preference.
All right, I'm gonna speed this video up a little bit just to get to how to load the documents here real quick, because we know how to do the photos. We can figure that out a little bit. Here we go. And play.
Into the incomplete module area because we added that first exterior photo from the add listing screen. But that check mark is going to indicate that yes, you've accomplished something. You've successfully added photos. You can always return to add additional, but that component has been completed. All right, on to documents. Fairly similar process. So we're going to add looks like the listing contract is a required document for this MLS. And so we'd want to upload that. You'd opt to choose your file. And I don't know if I have, I probably do somewhere. Let's see. I don't know what I've got. Nope, I don't have it here. So, but where you would find it on your system, simply choose your file, add the necessary documents, and then you can indicate whether or not you would like that document to be private, public, available to the data share if that's applicable, or has edit privileges. So I'm going to cancel out of there. And we'll return to my edit this incomplete listing just a bit further. And then the last option under the incomplete listing screen will be for videos and virtual tours. And here's where we will add links. So we don't host anything. Your video or virtual tour would be hosted elsewhere, but you would be able to take the link and add it. So we would say Rose Creek.
Alrighty, guys.
Use the address number or something like that.
Alrighty, guys. I think I'm going to cut it off for today, but this video can be found in Flex MLS. If anybody wants me to play more of these, I can definitely do that. Because we have gone way over time at this point, and I will see y'all later.